This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. We're now discussing the comment of the Avodas Yisrael that there are 21 days of Ben HaMetzarim, like the Navi Yirmiyah foresaw in the vision of the Shaked, which means 42 time segments, which corresponds to the 42 Masais in the Midbar. And now what we're learning is, from the Tzar Hamar and from the Arizal, that the 42 Masais in the Midbar correspond to the 42 letter name of Hashem. And therefore the Torah begins and ends in the same way. It begins with the 42 letters in the beginning of Bereshis and ends with the 42 Masais. But now we're a little bit hesitant to further disclose any information about this because of the Gemara in Kedushin, that this is a secret name. We only give it over to a Tzanua and an Anav and a Baal Midos. And on the other hand, we find that this has been incorporated into the regular liturgy of the Tfilos. So, how exactly do we explain this? So, the Tosfos Yom Tov, Masechta Chagiga, Parak Beis, he quotes Tosfos in Chagiga that says that when we say we don't discuss Maaseh Bereshis, it refers to the 42 letter name of Hashem. But, says the Tosfos Yom Tov on the third line, Ein Safek Shehamechuven Ma Sha'asu Milalamdoi Hu Al Koyach Pu'ulasai. When we say we don't learn it, it means we don't learn how it works. Umasa Shal Yadav Nasa, and how it operates. We don't learn how Hashem created the world with these 42 letters. Di'ilu Yedias Oisi Oisav Umiloisav Vilvad Harei Noida. But to know what the letters are, everybody knows that. We know it already. V'chalila l'mechabrim hakdoshim. Heaven forbid for the holy authors shayu koisen oisai that they would write it u'mefarsim oisai and make it widespread. Ilu hayezeh b'chlal ha'isur. Reb Nechunya ben Akana and the ones who composed the Siddur never would have incorporated it into our tefillah if we're not allowed to know what these 42 letters are. You're not allowed to know, and you don't give over, so we're not going to explain how Hashem created Sunday with the letters Aleph, Beis, and so forth. And we're not going to learn how Hashem created Monday with the letters of Kara and so forth. But to know, does anybody know? I can't even answer that one. But maybe there's some people know. But to know what the letters are, that you're allowed to know. And that's well known. In fact, one of the basic works of Kabbalah, there's a Sefer Shari Oira by Rabbi Yosef Giktilia. Rabbi Yosef Giktilia, the author of the Shari Oira. And he writes that somebody who wants to understand the secrets, he says, Sheishtadel Adam M'chol Koichai B'Torah Lahasik Havanas Kol Shem V'Shem May Oisam Shemais HaKadosh and Esgar B'Torah. Person should try with all of their strength to understand the various names in the Torah. Kagoin, Ekya, Yudkei Vavkei, Adnos, Kel, Eloika, Eloikim, Shakai. In other words, if the Torah uses a specific name, one should try and exert effort to understand why the Torah uses that particular Shem. V'yeda Adam, person should know v'yavin ki kol shem v'shem eila shemois kulam heim kedimyoin maftechos l'chol davar davar shadam sach ba'olam l'chol tzav inyan. Anything you need in the world is attained through a certain knowledge of these shemois. And when a person is misbainin on these shemois, he will find the whole Torah. And then says the Shari Oira, Uchsheyeda kavanas kol shem v'shem eila shemois. When you know the intent of each name, Yakir v'yeda gedulas mishamar v'haya olam. You will understand and know the greatness of the one who spoke and the world came into being. V'yivchad v'yira milfanav. You will be in fear of him. V'yishtoikek v'yichsoif v'yisave l'hidavek b'shem. And you will yearn, and you will have great hishtoikakos, and great ksifa, and great taiva, to cling to Hashem through the knowledge of these shames. In other words, if a person wants to engender a drive for spirituality and ruchnias, it comes from pursuing the knowledge of these shemos. And this is what David HaMelech says in Tehillim. Asagivehu, I will raise him up. Why will Rebbeinu Shem raise us up? Ki yada shemi, because they knew my name. Yikra'eni, they will call out to me. V'ehenei, and I'll answer him. Says the Shari'ora, David HaMelech doesn't say, I will raise a person up because they will say my name, but I will raise them up if they know my name. The Ikar is the knowledge, and if they understand the specific connotation of a certain name of Hashem, then Yikra'eni ve'aneu. If they need something and they're mechavin to that shame, then I'll answer them. So on the one hand, these are inyanim of Torah which are very much only l'tznuim and anovim and balei midos. But on the other hand, says the Tosfos Yom Tov, to know what the name is and know a certain level of understanding is not included in the prohibition. The prohibition is to know how it operates and to know how it is payal. Okay, and with that hakdama, and with another hakdama that we know when it comes to certain matters, there's a heter of apei tlasa, that once 3 people know about it, there is an opinion in the Rishonim that once something is widespread, you're allowed to talk about it. Even though, by the way, the Chafetz Chaim does not paskin that way. Chafetz Chaim says not to rely on it. Right? Even by Lashon Hara. But that's by Lashon Hara. But the Ramban says in Parshas Achrei Mos the following rule. The Ramban says, Rabbi Avram, Hayaneman Ruach Mechas Adavar, that Rabbi Avram Even Ezra was a trustworthy person who uncovers a secret, who keeps the matter to himself. V'ani Rachel Megalasoid, but I'm going to be the Baal Lashon Hara and I'm going to reveal it to you. And the Ramban says, but I'm going to be a Baal Lashon Hara. What right do I have to reveal secret information? And the Ramban says the heter is Shekvar Gilu Lanu Chazal. Chazal already revealed it to us, so it's already well known. So we say the same thing. Whatever I'm telling you now is already Yadu'al Mefursam in many, many Svarim today. You know, even it used to be in the olden days, this type of thing was reserved for the Tsanuim. But the Svarim bring down that Ba'achras Hayamim, the Zayar says in Parshas Nasai, Uvegin da Asidin Yisrael Lamita Meilana Dechaye Ihi Sefer Zayar Yipkun Min Galusa Barachame. In other words, at the end of days, a lot of this information is becoming much more well known through the Sifrei Chasidus and through the Sifrei Machshava, and also in many of the Svarim written by the Gedolim today, they write this stuff out in the open by many, many Gedolei Yisrael today. So I'm just reading to you what they write, and hopefully we'll have the heter of Apei Tlasa. Okay.
I just went through this.
Yeah, on this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why in the 42?
Okay, we'll see. I'm not answering a question. I'm telling you what I'm telling you. And this is that, okay? Look at number 29. The Arizal says in the Shar HaKavonos, he says, in terms of Kriya Shema al Hamita, he says, now if you look in the Ashkenaz Sidurim, the Ana B'Kayach does not appear. But in Nusach Sfard, I believe, Ana B'Kayach does appear. And the Arizal says, what's the reason? The Arizal says you should be mechavein, that you're going from different oilamos, one to the next. You're going from one oilam ha'asiyah to oilam ha'yitzira. And how do you do that? How do you have this aliyah? Says Arizal, you have it with the shame that we've been speaking about, which is how many words? 7. Keneged the 7 spheros. And says Arizal, after vidoy, you should say Ana B'Kayach, but you should not say the 42-letter name of Hashem. Why? Because you're not allowed to say it. Says Arizal, Al Tisko Shem Ben Membez B'Ficha Mahamish, Aval Techavein Eich Nirmois B'Rashay Tevoy Shel Tefillah Zud Ana B'Kayach. When you say Ana B'Kayach, you should have in mind the shame that is merumaz in this tefillah. Okay? And through this tefillah, the Arizal says your nefesh, your neshama will have an aliyah from one olam to the next. Very interesting. So what we're learning here is, and Arizal concludes, Ein shum aliyah ala yedei shem ben membez. If you want to get in life from one level to the next, from one station to the next, from one matzav to the next, if you want to travel and get from place A to place B, Ein aliyah ba'olam, only with the shem membez. Why is that? Why do you need the shem membez to have an aliyah? So we have over here, says the Tikkunei Zayar. By the way, the 42-letter name of Hashem is how many words? 7. Each word has how many letters? 6. What is the significance of the 6 letters of each word? He says, on the second line, number 30, V'inon Zayin, L'kabel Zayin Yimei Bereshis. These are the 7 corresponding to the 7 days of Bereshis, which are alluded to in the 7 Shemais, Ana V'kach Geula Simcha Tater Tzrura. V'alei Idmar, and about these 6 letters of each word, it says in Yeshaya, Srafim Oimdim Mimaloi, Sheish Kanafayim, Kinei Sheish Kanafayim Le'echad. Each malach had 6 wings, to behind Parcha Tzoloi Sala'ila. That with them, they fly up the tefillah upward. V'inon Taman Membez, Lekabel Membez. Okay, and V'inon Taman Membez. These are the 42. In other words, the Zayar is teaching us that the 6 letters of each word correspond to what? The 6 wings of the Malachim. This is the Shem Membez, and now he says another secret, a tremendous side. How many times does the name of Hashem appear in the Tefillin? How many times does Hashem's name appear in Tefillin? 21 in the Tefillin Shal Yad, 21 in the Tefillin Shal Rosh, corresponding to the Shem Membez. And that is why when the Goyim see the Tefillin, V'ro Kalei Amaretz Ki Shem Hashem Nikra Alecha V'yaro Mimeka. And it's suggested in the Sefer Shvilei Pinchas that if the Arizal says that the tefillah is carried up with the Shem Membez, so that is no wonder why we wear the tefillin during tefillah, because through the 42 mentions of Hashem's name in the tefillin, it's Mala Art Tefillas. Now let's take a look exactly about these Malachi Hasharis. If you look in Sefer Yeshaya, Perek Vav, Pasuk Aleph and Beis, it says, V'shnas Mois HaMelech Uziyahu V'eres Hashem Yoshev HaKisei Ram V'Nisa Srafim Oimdim Mima'aloi. There were angels above him. Sheish Kanafayim Liachad. B'shtayim Yichase Fanav. Uv'shtayim Yichase Raglav. Uv'shtayim Ya'oifev. 2 wings, the Malachim cover their face. 2 wings, they cover their feet. And with 2 they fly. Rashi says, why do they cover their face with 2? So they shouldn't look at the Shekhinah. Why do they cover their legs? Tznios, so that their guf should not be apparent before Hashem. And why do they fly with 2? They only use 2. So says the Arizal, that's the inyan of the Ana B'Kayach and the Kriya Shema L'Amita. Because with 2, right, the Shem Membez has how many words? 7 words. Each word has 6 letters. With the first 2 letters, you're covering the face of your nefesh. With the last 2, you fly up. And with the middle ones, you cover your feet. And this is the inyan of why you say it in Kriya Shema L'Amita. You got to make it from downstairs to upstairs. How do you make it? Ana b'kayach gedula simencha.
2 you cover the face, is it?
2 you cover your face. 2 you cover your feet. And 2 you fly up.
No.
What?
No.
They do. They do.
Right, no, that's but for us, how did it look to us again?
So 2, the first 2 words you cover your face.
Fine.
2 you cover your feet.
Okay.
And 2 you go upstairs. By the way, the Arizal says every day of the week you're mechavein for a different day. So the first one is for Sunday, Monday, fine. By the way, it's very interesting to me that what word corresponds to Shabbos? Shabbosenu kabel, ushma tzakosenu yoidea talumais. Rebbeinu Shalom, Shabbosenu kabel. Listen to our Shaiva. You don't cry out on Shabbos. The tzakosenu, right? Shabbosenu kabel, shma tzakosenu. Listen to our Akra. We don't daven on Shabbos. You're not to ask for your needs. So Gemara says like this: Kol hama'aneges haShabbos noisnin loy nachla b'mitzarim mishaloy sliboy. Also, the Gemara says anybody who's ma'anig the Shabbos, they give you mishaloy sliboy. Look in the Marsha there, but we're going to say a little different. What's the reason if someone's ma'anig the Shabbos, they give you mishaloy sliboy? The answer is sometimes a person might say it's very hard to enjoy Shabbos. I have a lot of things that I need to be mispalo for. So at least during the week, I have a way of easing my pain. And that is, I could cry out to Hashem. But on Shabbos, how could I enjoy the Shabbos? Not only do I have tsar, I can't even cry out to Rebbeinu Shalom. So Rebbeinu Shalom says, don't worry about it. If you forget about your tsaras on Shabbos, and you're ma'anig in the Shabbos, and you enjoy the Shabbos, I'll give you mishaloy sliba. You don't even have to daven to me. I will know talumay sliba. I'll know the secrets of your heart. And you don't even have to cry out to me. I'll figure out what you need. I'll take care of it. You just enjoy the Shabbos. I'll take care of your needs. So what shame corresponds to Shabbos? Shabbosenu kabel. Ushma tzakosenu. But we say, Rebbeinu Shalom, we're not allowed to do that on Shabbos. We say, no problem. Yoidea talumas. Rebbeinu Shalom knows. He knows what we need. And he hears the cry of our heart even though we don't enunciate it. Okay. By the way,
Where are the 7 words?
look at number 26. Word number 1 is Anavakach. You see on the left hand side? Look at number 26, right?
Yeah.
Number 26, the word on the left hand side is word 1. The word consists of 6 letters.
Each one of these sentences.
The days.
What?
6 letters.
Right, there's 7 words. Right, there's 7 words. One is Anavakach, the Rosh Hashanah, so that is word 1. Kabarina Samcha Savino Tarino Naira is word 2. Rosh Hashanah, so that is word 2. No Gibar Dar Sheichul Shamim is word 3. Baruch Shem Kvan Malchusa is not part of it, and each word has 6 letters. So each word is for a day of the week, and each word has 6 letters connected to 6 knafayim. Okay? By the way, this comes from number 34. The source of it is the Tikkunei Zayar, that the 6 letters correspond to the 6 knafayim. Okay. Comes the Arizal says further. The Arizal says further in number 35. And the Reb Chaim Vital brings down that when you say Ana v'kayach, the correct way to say it is Ana v'kayach, pause, Gedulas Yemincha, pause, Tater Tzrura, pause. That's what the Arizal says. Says Reb Chaim Vital. Why?
Every line like this?
Every 2 words.
Pause every word. Every line. 6 lines. 7 lines.
Why? Because since each 2 words corresponds to what?
The name.
The different knafayim, the whole thing is the 42-letter name of Hashem. And there's 7 words. Each one has 7 letters. And 2 of them are covering your face. And 2 of them are covering your feet. And 2 of them you're flying with. Therefore, there's an inyan of separating the 2.
But that doesn't make sense. The second line. Kabe rinas, amkus agreino. Rinas amkus.
It does not making sense. The tefillah is just a remez. The tefillah is not the name of Hashem. The tefillah is just the tefillah written by Reb Nechunim ben Akana, that the Rashi Tevis of it is a remez to the Shem.
You say the tefillah, right?
The purpose of the tefillah is to be maramis to the Rashi Tevis. Okay, by the way, this is also found in the Shlach Kadosh Masechta Psachim, where he says that the inyan of mentioning the 42-letter name of Hashem, it's 7 words, 6 letters, and the 6 letters correspond to the 6 wings. Listen to what he says. The shem zeh toiv lahaskira b'layla koydem shnasai. This is a good thing to say at night before you go to sleep. Also, Kaidem Patira. Before you go to the next world, it's also a good thing to say. Why? Because, like the Arizal said, Ein Aliyah B'li Shem Membeis. If you want to get from one station in life to the next, from one oilam to the next, it's Al Yidei the Shem. But Rabbi said we mentioned that at the beginning of the Shiur, from the Tzar Hamar, that the 42 Masois that Klal Yisrael did in the Midbar correspond to the 42 letter name of Hashem. Now the Ohr HaChaim HaKadosh reveals to us also another yediyah that we once mentioned, that why is it that in some places in the Midbar we stayed for a while, and some places we went to sleep there in the middle of the night, Hashem woke us up and we moved. Why certain places we stayed, certain places we left, certain places were there a long time, certain places were there a short time? Well, says the Ohr HaChaim HaKadosh, the purpose of traveling in the Midbar is we were picking up different sparks of Kedusha that got lost in the way, and this is an idea that the Ohr HaChaim HaKadosh mentioned many, many times, especially in the context of Yitzias Mitzrayim. The Ohr HaChaim HaKadosh uses it to explain, sometimes an Amoira will look at another Amoira, V'nasa, Gal Shalat Samois, all of a sudden the guy drops dead. There's an idea that everything in this world has sparks of Kedusha, and once you remove the sparks, the thing has no life force anymore. That's why the Sefer Agdal mentions sometimes Klal Yisrael, they'll be in a certain galus for a certain amount of time, and then overnight, we're out of there, right? In Spain, August 22nd, 1492, all of a sudden, we're out of there and we never return. Why? We have a certain avodah, we have to pick up different sparks of Kedusha that get deposited in different places, and once we've accomplished that, the job is done. Says Ohr HaChaim HaKadosh, that was the 42 Masois in the Midbar. Certain places we had more work to do, certain places less work to do, and once we're finished in a place, we're done, we don't need to go back there anymore. So there's a Sefer, Be'er Mayim Chaim. Be'er Mayim Chaim was written by the author of Sidurei Shel Shabbos, and he also brings this idea that the 42 Masois were to be able to pick up the various sparks of Kedusha. And he brings also a very interesting yediyah. And that yediyah is that the shame which is used to be mevarer and to pick up nitzotzos HaKedusha, to be mevarer, to be birur, is the shame membeis. The shame membeis is the shame with which you draw forth different specific dusts and particles of Kedusha that gets lost. He says very explicitly, he says on the fifth line, that's why they did not encamp and travel and stay in different places equal amount of time. Sometimes they stay in a place a year, and some place they only stayed a day or two. Why? Because everything was al pi Hashem. When the Anan stayed, they stayed. When the Anan moved, they moved. The Alkain Haya Mispar Masais Mem Beis. Why were there 42 encampments? Ki Yadua Sharkol Bechinas Ha'alos HaKedusha Mimata Lamala. Just like the Arizal says, you can't get from one world to the next. If you want to pick up sparks of Kedusha, what name do you need? HaKol Nasa Yidei Shem HaKadosh Mem Beis. Everything is accomplished with the 42 letter name of Hashem. By the way, Rabbeinu Bechai also teaches us a big chiddush in this week's parsha, that we have a principle, Ki meitzeischa me'eretz Mitzrayim, arenu niflais, that whatever happened in the times of Mitzrayim will replicate and duplicate itself in the Geula Asida. And we mentioned, Rabbeinu Bechai writes in many, many places, all the makos will repeat themselves, Kriyas Yamsuf. Even in Sefer Daniel, 3 times are given for the coming of the Geula, corresponding to the 210 years, the 400 years, the 430 years. Well, it says Rabbeinu Bechai, just like Bnei Yisrael traveled in the Midbar, how many Masois? 42 Masois. So too, Klal Yisrael will go through 42 Masois in the Midbar until the Rebbeinu Shalom will redeem us. B'mher v'yameinu. Look at number 39. There's another very important benefit from the 42 encampments. Ki yirmais la'asad, it alludes to the future. Sharei divrei hanavim, the words of the Nevi'im, kulam mochichim, they all show, sha'agula achroina kedimyon harishayna. The Lashon Rabbeinu B'chai in other places, kol hanavim misnavim b'peh echad. It's unanimous that the future Geula will be exactly parallel to the original Geula. Uchshem sheyatzu yisam migula rishonim yitzam el hamidbar, just like Klal Yisrael left the midbar and they went out of Mitzrayim, kain begula achroina. So too in the final Geula. Asidim sheyatzu harbe miyisrael el midbar. Many Jews will be lost in the desert. V'yavru b'mekayim ha'seila, and they will be passing through these locations. V'akadosh baruch hu yichalkelim, God will sustain them. V'yina'alim, and He will guide them. K'may she'asal Yisrael b'midbar. Hu she'amar hanavi. V'hayitzeisim el midbar ha'amim. And that's why it says 2 times Maseihem L'moitza'ehem. One for the first time, and one for the second time. By the way, the Zohar also says that the same way the Rebbeinu Shalom took us out of the Midbar the first time with the Shem Mem Beis, also in the future, He will also take us out with this Shem Ba'aleu Itmar Srafim Oimdim Mimaloi, number 40, Sheish Knafayim Le'echad, which is the 42-letter name of Hashem. In one, with 2 of them, He will cover our face so that our enemies cannot look at us. And 2 of them, He will cover our feet so that the Chet HaEgo will not be remembered. And with 2 of them, He will fly us out of the Golus, like the Pasuk says, Va'esa eschem al kanfei nesharim.
2 again, how about 2?
2 of them, He will cover our face so that the enemies cannot look at us. 2 of them, He will cover our feet, not because the Zohar said earlier that the feet remind the Rebbeinu Shalom of the Egal, and with 2 He will fly us out of the Golus. So it's very interesting, by the way, that God created the world with what? God created the world with the 42-letter name of Hashem. But remember we learned how the Rebbeinu Shalom had to recreate the world in Mitzrayim, that the 10 Makos corresponded to the set 10 Ma'amaros Shabbai Nivra Olam. And when Rebbeinu Shalom took us out of Mitzrayim, it was like a new Brias HaOlam. Before He brought us into Eretz Yisrael to build the Beis HaMikdash, it's almost as if He needed to recreate existence and recreate the world. Rabbi say every year we lay in Parshas Matos Maseh during the Yemei HaMetzarim. And the Bnei Yissaschar writes, because Matos and Maseh speak about distribution of Eretz Yisrael. And it's during this time of the year, during the 3 weeks, which ultimately will be reversed and will be transformed into days of Moed, Yemei Simcha for Klal Yisrael. These will be the time where the Rebbeinu Shalom will have Rachmanas on us and be Mekabetz us back to Eretz Yisrael. So it is therefore very fitting to read about the distribution of Eretz Yisrael during the Yemei HaMetzarim. So therefore, based on all of the above, so we would like to suggest the following. It might not even be a Chiddush, it might be just what all of these Maramakamis are saying, and that is the following. The Avodas Yisrael told us that the 42 time segments of the Yemei HaMetzarim correspond to the 42 Masais. And just like we had to go through 42 Masais before we entered Eretz Yisrael, so too we have to go through the Yemei HaMetzarim, the 42 time segments, before we get to Tisha B'Av, which is the day of the birth of Mashiach. And based on the Arizal said, you can't have any Aliyah without the Shem Mem Beis. Well, that would explain why, in order to get us from Mitzrayim into Eretz Yisrael, the Rebbeinu Shalom had to put us through the 42 Masais, because He's trying to be Mala us. He's trying to raise us up, Nikor HaBarzel, and bring us to Eretz Yisrael. Well, you can't have an Aliyah without the 42-letter name of Hashem, which was Merumaz in the 42 Masais. Well, Rabbi say, even though there are 22 days in the Yemei HaMetzarim, but day 22 doesn't count. Day 22 is Tisha B'Av. Day 22 is the birth of Mashiach. Day 22 is the future Moed, with when the Rebbeinu Shalom will have Rachmanas on us. But if we want to get there, if we want to have the Aliyah to Tisha B'Av, if we want to be Mala Tisha B'Av into a day of Moed, a day of the latest Mashiach, we also have to go through the 42 Masais. And the 42 Masais are the 42 time segments of the Yemei HaMetzarim, which correspond also to the Shem Mem Beis, that is alluded to in Ana B'Kayach. And just like the Rebbeinu Shalom, the first time around, he had to take us through the Midbar and 42 Masais, so too now, before Mashiach comes, we have to travel through the 42 time segments of the Yemei HaMetzarim, and then, Mirz Hashem, Mashiach should be born on Tisha B'Av, V'yavai, V'yagalenu, P'mhera, V'yameinu, Amen.
Amen.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.